Hi, everybody. Wait, I gotta turn on I got a new toy for my birthday. It's an on-air button. So
Oh, look at that.
we are officially, Sammie De Marco, we are officially on air, and welcome to Conversation with Calvin, we the species. And Because of the magical properties of the universe, we got connected, I don't know, a month or so ago. And when I was looking at your bio and your journey, I was immediately drawn to that, Sammie. So I'm with Sammie De Marco, who's former Jersey girl, by the
Mhm.
way. And they make movies about Jersey girls. And actually, there was a song. It just came to me. Jersey girls don't pump gas.
Is there really?
And you're a music person. Somewhere you can check this out, Sammie. Somewhere somebody made a song. I swear, it just came to me. Jersey girls don't pump gas.
I gotta look it up.
Look it up.
I
I
gotta look it
don't know
up.
who it was, but it just popped into my consciousness sitting here talking to you. Uh, so Officially, so we met, and I saw your journey. Even though you have this wonderful smile, it wasn't an easy journey, and that's why we're here to kind of talk about that because you can light some fires and light some light bulbs and teach you are a certified life coach at the precipice of doing more with that, and we can talk about that too. This official title, Nostalgia, Resilience, and the Power of Self-Love from Trauma to Transformation, which means that Samantha, Sammie, has had some rough stuff. Trauma at different stages, narcissistic abuse, religious trauma, devastating loss with your mom, and I mean all of these ingredients go into you and who you are. And you just finished writing a book, and we can talk about that. So, uh, uh, and again, I was drawn, and of course, you're now a music person. You go to all these, is it 90s music and stuff?
Yes, it is. I love
Listening.
90s music.
I stopped listening to officially to music right after Peter Paul and Mary stopped singing.
Mm.
I mean, I'm a folkie, I'm a 60s guy. Although
I'm a
uh,
90s kid,
yeah,
so.
my son started dragging me to Springsteen concerts, and I became a
Oh,
huge Springsteen fan. Actually, he lives 2 miles away.
oh,
So
nice.
right down the road from me, 2 miles away, is Bruce Springsteen. And yes,
Wow.
I bumped into him. He and I used to work out. We had the same gym, and one morning I'm at this gym before the pandemic, and I'm doing the adductor machine. It's so weird. And you get that feeling there's somebody next to you. So while I'm
Hmm.
on my machine, I look next to me, literally like 2 feet away. It's Bruce Springsteen.
That's funny.
It was so surreal. And as it turns out, he and I were on the same schedule, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 10:30 to 11:30. So I saw Bruce 3 times a week, and he wasn't on tour back then.
Oh, wow. That's crazy. That's pretty
Yeah, so
cool.
yeah, and we actually talked once at some length. I would never bother him. That that's You never bother anybody at gym. It's their world, and I respect
Hmm.
that. But one day he uh, knew my trainer and came over and started talking to my trainer and interrupted my workout. And I said to myself, he violated all the rules. So as he was about to leave, I stopped him. I said, "Hey,
I
Bruce,
would too.
don't leave. We got to talk." And I said, I read your bio, and he thanked me. And I said, you have a favorite horse. Your favorite horse in the world that lives with you on your farm. Your favorite horse is named Cal. And he said, yeah. I said, well, that's my name. He came over and we hugged and we laughed.
Oh,
The sad thing is, 3 days later, COVID hit. So that was the last time, and I would have had whatever. This is not about Bruce, it's about you. So, uh, how about if you do a little background, a little bio, and then we're going to jump into some really introspective, heavy duty stuff.
yeah.
Take it away, Sammy.
So, yeah, my name's Sammy. I'm 41. I currently live in Jacksonville, Florida, but I moved here from New Jersey just 4 months ago after a pretty difficult divorce. You had mentioned before that I've experienced a lot of trauma kind of at every stage of my life. And probably for most of my life, I thought it might have been possible that it would destroy me. Every time something else hit, I didn't think that I'd be able to get through it. Started, first of all, I have ADHD like very badly, but it was undiagnosed until 2 years ago. So I went through my childhood, my teen years, my adult life, most of it, having this disability and knowing that there's something that is different about me and there's some reason that I'm struggling the way that my peers don't seem to be struggling, but not knowing why. So right off the bat, that gave me that feeling of not being good enough, of not being able to measure up like everyone else, and really being hard on myself just in general. So, right off the bat, that is something that was underlying for me that I struggled with for all of my life. And then on top of that, when I was younger, when my parents were married, my dad is very much a narcissist. And I grew up around a lot of turmoil with my mom and my dad. Even when they got divorced, my dad was in and out of my life, and I kind of became really, really insecure, really afraid of abandonment, really just, destabilized. I hung out with guys that were way too old for me, who took advantage of me, and I didn't know better at the time, but they sure did. And, they should have known better, but I was very much just feeling empty because I didn't have my father around. Fast forward a little bit more after high school, I did reconnect with my dad. And I ended up in a church that was very abusive. And there was a lot of control involved and a lot of authority involved and a lot of manipulation involved in that. And on top of that, they believed that mental health issues were spiritual issues only. So my anxiety was a lack of faith in God. My struggles with it were me having something in my life that allowed for the devil to come in and, attack my life. But basically, I spent years trying to figure out what it was that I was doing wrong that was making it so that I was unable to have that faith that everybody else seemed to have. I didn't understand why I had this anxiety that nobody else seemed to have, but I blamed myself, just like I blame myself for everything else throughout my life. Eventually, I met my now ex-husband, and it was like a fairy tale at first. When we were dating, when we got engaged, I mean, like, I thought I hit the jackpot. I thought it was like, this is God making up for every terrible thing that has ever happened in my life. Finally, there's a good man who is kind to me, who takes care of me. He treats me like gold. He's shown me all kinds of new things that I've never experienced before. So I got married, marrying the love of my life. Just I honestly felt like I was living in like a fairy tale or like one of those romantic comedies because we'd find ourselves laughing all the time.
Wow.
And then when we got married, everything flipped really quickly.
Wow.
Really, really, really quickly. And I obviously didn't understand it at the time, what was going on, but suddenly he became very critical of me, became very hard on me. He started to make comments about things that I was doing for myself, and not wanting me to do things that I enjoyed, like go to concerts and, experience some of my 90s stuff. And shortly after we got married, my mom got very sick and she was diagnosed with end-stage liver disease and she ended up needing a transplant. So my brother ended up being her donor.
Wow.
and went through with the liver transplant. And it was like a touch and go with my mom for months while she was in the hospital. And my ex made my life hell over it. During that time, he would basically say that he felt like our life was on hold because my mom was sick. And I was like, I don't know whose life is on hold because I'm living mine right now and it's a nightmare. Um, and there were things that I wanted to do to help lift my spirits because everything was so negative all the time. There was so much, just trauma around me. And my favorite band, the Backstreet Boys, announced that they were doing a new tour. So while my mom was in the hospital, my best friend and I were like, this is amazing. Like, we can go to the show. We have something to look forward to that's positive, that's good. And it became a months long fight with my ex. And again, I didn't understand it at the time. I'm like, he knew that I was like a fan. He knew I enjoyed doing these things when we got married. He used to seem like he thought it was really cute. Like, I don't understand what is happening here. And from that, it just became nonstop fights, nonstop belittling me,
Mm,
disregarding me. And I was left completely like just bewildered. I didn't understand what was happening emotionally. It completely wrecked me because I was watching my mom fight for her life and acutely aware that I could lose her at any moment. And she was my safe space in my life. But also seeing that this man that I married doesn't quite seem to be the
oof,
man that I thought he was, that he very much was showing the exact same characteristics of my father, the
oof.
exact same narcissism. And it really left me feeling jarred. And when my mom, 19 months after her transplant, my mom's appendix burst and her immune system was too compromised
Mm,
to be able to recover from it.
mm,
So we ended up losing her in September of 2020.
oof.
And that was one of those moments that like split my life in half to where there is a life and a Sam that existed before my mom passed away and a completely different life and a completely different person that exists now after losing her. 'Cause she was such a central figure in my life. And my ex was there for me for about a month until he started screaming at me and laying into me again. And I know this because I was so afraid of his temper, even though he hadn't laid an actual hand on me,
Mm,
that I started recording conversations when I would hear his voice start to rise. And like, I mean, just a side note, if you're in a relationship that you feel like you have to record a conversation because of the other person's temper and you're afraid, that's probably a red flag that you shouldn't be in the relationship.
wow.
And it took me years, probably, it took me about 4 years of dealing with constant verbal abuse, being not threatened to have myself harmed, but he would threaten to harm himself in front of me. So basically,
Jeez.
add more trauma to my life by watching him, by the threats of me losing him in front of my face. So
Wow.
he would use those types of things against me. And my therapist at the time, there were 3 different times that she recommended that I reach out to Jersey Battered Women's Services because she said to me, Sam, not all abuse is physical. As a matter of fact, a lot of abuse is just verbal because men are, the abusers are able to maintain control without having to escalate to physical abuse. It's usually when women start to leave or the emotional abuse is no longer working that things escalate and you really don't have any idea of when things are going to escalate, like you don't know when the time is going to be that it's not the wall that he punches but it's you, and there was a time that he had used his body to like check me and keep me from leaving a room. And that was the first time that I was like, oh, he has the ability to be physical with me. Like he very much could harm me, keep me from leaving, escalate this into physical things. And so
Oof.
after the third time my therapist recommended I reach out, I finally did. And that was eye-opening for me. And it was kind of the beginning of something new where I got a lot of education around the dynamics of abuse and control. And it gave me the strength to get myself out of that relationship and to start doing it. And honestly, when I first started, I didn't know how I was going to do it. I was like, he makes so much more money than me. I can't afford to, live on my own. I don't know how I'm going to be able to do any of this. And New Jersey prices are astronomical. So I immediately felt defeated when I first started looking into the idea of moving. So I was like, I can't even afford like a shoebox in the worst parts of like some of like the inner cities. And just on a fluke, I decided to look in Jacksonville, Florida, because my best friend lived here and we used to joke that, she should move to New Jersey or I should move to Jacksonville. And the prices here are like a third of the price in New Jersey. So suddenly I started to get this vision in my head of a new life that I could build in Florida if I started over. And a year ago, it was just kind of an idea in my mind of, maybe I can get out of this relationship. Maybe I can start over somewhere fresh. To now, I've been here for 4 months and I am the happiest I've ever been in my life, the most peaceful I've ever been in my life. And honestly, I love myself, like who I am and what I'm doing with my life more than I ever have before. And I'm actually able to enjoy things like the Backstreet Boys and my 90s conventions and all the fun things that I go to without having to fight somebody for the ability to do those things.
I have a question off topic from stuff I scribbled down.
Yeah.
Listening to you and all, um, would would you having lived together before you got married with this person, would that have made a difference?
No, because we did live together.
Oh, you
He did a
did.
really great job of hiding his true
Oh,
character
wow.
from me. I
Wow.
mean, he he barely ever raised his voice to me.
Wow.
He barely ever put me
Wow.
down. I mean, like he was more, he would talk about his own insecurities, but he would never take them out on me. And I feel like it was just because he was very careful because I didn't say I do. And in his mind, he would ask me things like, "Oh, I'm afraid you're going to leave me someday if we get married." And I would say to him naively, like, "Well, are you going to hit me or cheat on me? Because I mean, those are the only two things that you can't work through, everything else you can try and work through." And I think he just took that as once we were married, as long as he didn't physically hit me or cheat on me, that he could treat me any way that he wanted to treat me. Because he never acted like that before we got married, even though we were living together. He might have been frustrated once in a while, but I think there was one time maybe that he raised his voice to me before we got married and then like immediately apologized. And because I wasn't used to even having someone apologize to me after yelling at me, it's like my father never apologized. Um, I just took it as, he was having a bad moment. And I can look back now, I can see how there's some red flags that I excused and that, I kind of blew off. But at the time, it was like a literal light switch
Mm.
flipped after we got married.
Wow. Wow. All right. I got to take a deep breath here. Listen to this. I just don't, it's funny in some of my writings, I'm listening to you and I've written a couple books and I'm always poking fun at the Cro-Magnon caveman because I blame the Cro-Magnon caveman for the beginnings of misogyny.
Hmm.
making a woman walk two steps behind him. And I think that's when all our problems began. It's tongue in cheek and stuff, and but I've used that. It's not comedically; it's serious stuff. But I blame the Cro-Magnon. That's when I think misogyny was born. Anyway, um, you are a nostalgia person, and you've said, as I'm reading, nostalgia isn't just a hobby. It's a form of healing, and I'd like to hear about
It
that.
is. So I mentioned previously how I love to go to concerts and stuff, but it's not just any concert. It's not just any kind of event. I grew up in the 90s. So when it comes to 90s pop culture, there's just something about it that helps me to really connect with that inner child that, maybe these were some of the positive things from my childhood. So bands like the Backstreet Boys, I grew up with them all over my walls, like wishing that someday I could possibly meet them, someday I could possibly have these experiences. And now I'm an adult with adult money, which means that I can make a lot of the things that my childhood self would have died to have happen actually happen. So I first discovered how healing this could be for me after my mom passed away. There were two events specifically. One was a 90s convention where there were a lot of TV show reunions from the 90s, and just all the celebrities I grew up watching on TV were there for you to meet. The pictures behind me are actually all from 90s conventions.
Wow.
And I remember being there and I felt a little anxious at times because it was the first time I was doing something since, my mom had passed away. But I just remember feeling this sense of joy and this sense of being the most authentic version of myself. Like I felt like me for the first time in a long time. And this was right after things started opening up after COVID. So I had been cooped up with, somebody who puts me down for years now. And so finally getting to go out and do some things, I felt the most like myself. And then when I went to the Backstreet Boys concert, I remember being there and the music starting and feeling this intense joy. And it stopped me for a minute because I was like, how could I possibly be this happy when my favorite person in the world is not here anymore? Like it just didn't seem like it was right to be so happy when my mom was gone. And I kind of heard her voice in the back of my head being like, no, 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 Sam. Like, I do not want you to spend your life miserable and missing me. Like, I want you to find a way to make the best out of your life. And my mom would always teach me, you got to find ways to look for the good and you have to find ways to, enjoy your life, whatever that is. And after going to that concert and the convention and just having so much fun and realizing how much it connected me to the most authentic version of myself, I started to make it a very purposeful thing to have in my life. So I have, a portion of my paycheck that goes into a savings every, month that is directly so that I can go to the concerts I want to go to and so that I can go to the conventions because it's so unbelievably healing to be in those environments. It gives me something to look forward to. So when things are going horrible in life, as they do, and we often can't control it, there's also good things that are going on that I have to look forward to.
Okay. Okay. Um, Part of the title here uh, is resilience, which is an amazing word. So you lived through narcissistic abuse. You talked about that, and sexual assault and divorce, the loss of your mom, which is a tremendous weight. How have these experiences shaped your understanding of resilience? Because you are resilient.
It made me realize resilience isn't something that is something you just obtain overnight. it is not often pretty or linear in getting to a place to where you're able to not just bounce back from things that have happened, but really find ways to navigate through your life. I think that, you know, before before losing my mom, I had less of an understanding of what resilience really meant. I thought that it was just being able to get through something difficult, basically just surviving it and, being able to keep on going. But for me now, resilience isn't just about being able to survive something difficult and bounce back from it, but it's being able to walk through that and then be able to thrive on the other side of it.
Okay. Okay. You listening to you and doing some reading, you hold a space, you hold a space for both grief and joy. Uh, why is it important, and as you go through life and the things that you're doing, why is it important for others, for people to know that these two can coexist? Grief.
Yeah, I think that sometimes we tend to believe that feelings are kind of all or nothing and experiences can be all or nothing. So when something really terrible happens, that can be completely overwhelming and destabilizing. But one of the things that I've noticed is that if you can try to focus on the positive things that are in your life. So it doesn't mean that there's something positive in every situation. So, for example, I'm not going to be able to hold space for grief and joy over my mom being gone. There is no joy in that. There's nothing good that comes from me not having my mom. It doesn't matter what I've done with it. But because I've made it a habit of asking myself what types of things bring me joy, now, even though there are difficult things, I'm realizing that I don't have to be miserable just because there's something bad that's going on. I can feel those feelings. And then I can also think about what good things I have coming, and I can look forward to those things. And in the same way, it's not good for us to ignore that grief and that sadness that we might be feeling either. So we don't want to just take up a whole bunch of space with all the good things and distract ourselves. We have to be able to say, like, this hurts here, and that's okay. And also, I'm enjoying this over here, and that's okay. And they can coexist at the same time.
Okay. Okay. Um, this is heavy stuff, so I'd like to take a little bit of a break. Take a deep breath. Take a deep breath, and I ask a couple of Calvin questions.
Go for
So,
it.
out of the clear random universe, what are some of your favorite movies?
So, my favorite movies actually are Legally Blonde
Okay.
and the Barbie movie.
Okay.
So,
Is that Reese
this,
Witherspoon?
yes.
It is. Okay.
My apartment actually is very pink, so you can't tell, but like my chairs here are pink, my sofa is pink, a lot of my decorations are pink. I love the color pink, and I love the Barbie movie and the Legally Blonde movie. And those are things I incorporate into my life every day too. So a lot of like the pink that's around my apartment is because I love those movies.
Great answer. Hey, great answer. And it's funny. I asked this, and I didn't, forewarn you. I was going to ask this, so
Mhm.
you had a response immediately, which is a lot of people have to think about it, but you knew exactly,
Yeah.
and that got to me. That's interesting. One more Calvin question. Um, I think I know. Well, it could be a couple answers. There's no rules here. These are just Calvin questions. So here's the scene, Sammie. Excluding family or friends,
Mhm.
somebody living or dead you'd like to spend a day with.
Oh, that's super easy, actually. AJ from the Backstreet Boys.
Okay.
And I'll tell you why, though, because not just the Backstreet Boys, but AJ specifically, because he is such an interesting person. And he talks so much he was on tour with one of the members of NSYNC and talked so much about authenticity, about his journey with mental health, about what it was like to learn how to really love himself. And it spoke to me when he was,
Oh,
you know, when he was talking about those things, because I was really starting to consider getting a divorce and everything. So he is just a human being that is magical to me. I've met him plenty of times and being around him, he's like a little magical unicorn. So if I could spend a whole day with him, easily I would.
great answer. Great answer. Okay, back to work. Uh, Anxiety has ruled a big part of your life in the past. What were some of the first like mind shifts or practices that helped you to begin to take control? You use some tools.
So, the biggest one that I learned, and this is something that I have taught to a lot of different people, is learning how to shift my mindset using progressive language. So, for example, I could tell myself all the time that I'm not good enough, I'm failing at everything, like, why can't I get it together like everybody else? And if I tried to shift my mindset into something like, I'm awesome, like it just wouldn't work. My brain would call BS on me and be like, you're lying, you don't think you're awesome. So I learned that I had to find ways to shift my mindset in a way that it wasn't tearing me down, but that it was believable as well. So instead of, originally in me feeling like I'm not good enough, I wouldn't be able to just be like, I'm good enough and believe it. So instead, I would say, I'm working on believing that I'm good enough. I'm in the process of developing, beliefs of self-esteem and being good enough. So it made it so much harder for my brain to be like, liar, because it's true. I'm in the process of learning that I'm good enough. So I'm not saying that I'm there. I'm not saying I believe it, but I'm not lying to myself. I'm not saying I'm stuck, that I'm not good enough, because that's a very stuck, fixed-based mindset. Instead, using progressive language where you're saying things like, I'm learning, I'm becoming, I'm developing, all of those kind of things help us to see that we're on a path, we're on a journey to get someplace and we're not stuck. And that was something that really made a big difference for me.
Yeah, I'm sitting here listening to you, and I don't know if you noticed, I've been writing some things down. I bill myself as one of maybe the only interviewer in history to actually take notes while he's on air. So I've been taking notes and I've been listening to you and digesting, and you got such a handle on things. And you really, I mean, you whether I don't know if that's the right expression, but you're so intuitive and
Hmm.
and you've lived and you put it all together and you frame it in such a way so you're very expressive and verbal and communicative and you know and you're speaking for me you're speaking well above your age, which
Thank
is
you.
a compliment. You know, you're putting stuff out here. You know, somebody's got a couple decades on you, and so and that's very impressive. Uh,
Thank you. And you
yeah.
want to know something that's crazy? Is my ex for a long time had me believing that I was naive, stupid, and lacked any self-awareness. And it wasn't until I left him that I realized that none of that stuff was actually true.
Wow. Wow. You know, what do I know? But you know, the depth and the story, and which is not over. It's still your story is still in development here. But I
Hmm.
could I'm not a screenplay guy, but there could be a screenplay there. You know, you're what your early years, your years with him, and that trauma and all of that, and your reinvention because you're resilient. That's powerful stuff. Uh, uh, it's not a comedy, but it's powerful stuff. And you're very expressive. And
That's the
actually,
Italian in me.
yeah, it's almost this. I'm trying to digest you. It's not that it's disarming, but you have this happy, expressive face, and a great smile, and you're talking about. And here's the disarming thing: you're talking about heavy duty stuff here.
Yeah, you know what? You're not the first person to ever say that. And I kind of joke sometimes that you sometimes don't realize like how significant of the trauma is that you went through until you're talking about it very casually and somebody else is like, wow, that's, very heavy. But also, I wasn't always this person. If you would have asked me 2 years ago, you would not see a smiling person. You would
Yeah.
not see somebody expressive. You would see somebody who was torn down and completely broken. And the only reason that I'm in the position that I am today to feel like I do is because I changed my environment and got away from my ex.
Well,
I stopped letting men because most of my life, that's what it's been is abusive men telling me who I should be, how I should be, what I needed to do. And so now that I am on my own, I only have to listen to me. And being able to just listen to me, it gives you a lot of clarity.
yeah. I didn't mention it to you when we were chatting before we went on air to get to know one another, but I'm a byproduct of a divorce too.
Hmm.
And it's funny the night before I got married, um, the first time, um, and we always to my first wife, the night before we got married, uh, you might like this quick little anecdotal story. And I'm not saying it on air. I mean, that was an important part of my life. I learned, and it helped mold me to who I am today. All of that because you take a lot of positive, as you know, positive
Hmm.
elements. You take positive elements from that. But we were babies growing up in the '60s. Who knew? First we were first boyfriend, first girlfriend.
Yeah.
Knew and stuff, and we fought about everything. I wanted to go for Chinese food. She wanted to go for Italian. It's a battle, and those were the kind of battles we had. So the night before we got married, uh, we had a huge fight in my mother's kitchen at midnight. And she ran into the bathroom off the kitchen and cried. It was stupid. It was about sending a greeting card to a relative. How do you address it? It's nothing, we're not talking about the war in Vietnam here. We're talking
Hmm.
about stupid things. And we had a fight. She cried, she ran out of the house, she slammed the door, and I thanked God that my mother, especially my mother, didn't hear this because my mother and father and sister were sleeping upstairs. And I was so grateful because I didn't know what to say. Did we get married the next day? And all of a sudden, from the dining room, out of the dark midnight dining room, my mother appears with tears dripping down her face. She said, Calvin, I heard everything. I was devastated. I heard everything. You cannot marry this girl tomorrow. It's not meant to be. It's no good. All you do is fight. Do not marry this girl. And here's what I said to her, Sammie, and you can file this in your memory bank here. Here's what I said to her. It was one of the most profound things I ever said. I don't even know where it came from because I was a young kid. But here's what I said. I said, Ma, it doesn't make a difference whom I marry tomorrow because I'm going to get divorced. Because that's the way my generation is doing things these days.
Mm.
So most of these marriages are going to end in divorce. So I said, truthfully, Mom, I want to get on with my life. I want to get this first thing done out of the way so I can set up a real life. So it was almost like taking a course, in a college,
Hmm.
marriage. And that's how I went into my first marriage, knowing at some point I'm going to get divorced.
Yep.
Boom.
I was married twice. I was married once when I was 20. I was and that was when I was at the churches with my dad and where I dealt with a lot of the religious trauma. Same thing, narcissist, I had a type. And yeah, I knew going into that it wasn't right, but my dad, I was having panic attacks and I was not going to go through with things. And my dad said to me that well, you're just letting your anxiety get the best of you, and you're going to end up missing out on this opportunity to be married to this man that's going to be a pastor, and you guys can go off and do great things together. And so rather than listen to my intuition that was telling me that this wasn't right, I kind of believed my dad. And I was so insecure at the time that I didn't think that there would ever be anyone that would love me. So I was just like, okay, well, this is better than being alone. At least there's somebody willing to love me because I was so insecure. But I learned that, control is not love. And learned that lesson one too many times. Not going to fall for that one again.
You said, this is off topic too. You said three or four times, maybe two times, I don't know. You used the word control. And it's funny, I'm not going to mention things, but my son, my amazing son, told me to watch a particular movie. I can tell you off air, but he suggested, he said it's a bit of a horror movie, Dad. And I'm not a big fan of that stuff because, I'm a child of the 60s. I like peace and beauty and love and all
Mhm.
this stuff. And, but anyway, he told me to watch it, and I watched it. And that word control came up a few times, and it was really, really, we'll talk about it off air if you want, but it's a powerful word, and a word that maybe needs to be used a lot more in our world for all of us to understand things better.
Yeah, especially when it comes to abuse, because I don't think that people realize how coercive control works, where you don't have to necessarily put your hands on somebody, but you can slowly destabilize them. You can make them believe that they're crazy. You can make them believe they're not remembering things correctly. You can, tell them they're being dramatic while they're expressing their feelings. And little by little, those things strip away at your self-worth and they strip away at what you know to be true about yourself until you start completely questioning everything about your own intuition. And instead, you start looking to this other person for their approval on whether or not it's okay to do something and just doing what they say is okay.
Okay. Good segue. One more little question on divorce,
Mhm.
because we're both experienced.
Yeah.
Um, Divorce is a redefining experience for everyone. Not everyone, but most people. What have you learned from these experiences, and have you learned about creating a life that you desire for yourself now? If there's a third, and the parenthetical thing is, and this is very contemporary. We lost Diane Keaton yesterday. One of my, I was so sad because she was one of the people who I wanted to meet most. I mean, I loved her work. I can't tell you how many times I watched Annie Hall, but and Baby Boom, I got a kick out of that picture. And she did Sleeper, which was a very funny movie. I talk about that movie all the time. But she never married,
Hmm.
and so that is a parenthetical thing for the question I just asked you on going forward. You've learned things if there's another relationship or so forth. So. uh,
Yeah, so in terms of what I've learned since my divorce, one, I do not think I will ever get married again because the thing is my recent ex-husband, he hid so much from me for so long about his real, personality and his real intentions. So even though we were living together, there was so much that he didn't allow for me to see. And it was like once there was a legal contract in place. All of a sudden, he didn't feel like he had to continue to treat me well.
Wow.
But the biggest thing that I learned since leaving my relationship is that the best relationship that you'll ever have is the one with yourself. That is the one that is worth cultivating, that is worth time. I spend a lot of time in solitude now because I'm spending time getting to know me. I'm journaling, I'm reading, I'm being mindful of the things that bring me joy. I'm being mindful of the things that drain me of my energy and trying to eliminate those things from my life. And now I truly am creating a life for myself that I've always wanted. I'm accomplishing goals that I had when I was a young kid. I mean, when I was a young kid, I wanted to be a singer or movie star. Now, I may not be a singer or a movie star, but I did get to be an extra in Happy Gilmore 2 with Adam Sandler.
Wow.
I
That's
got to do
New
some
Jersey,
like,
right?
yep, filmed
Yeah.
in New Jersey. So I've gotten to do some really cool things. I've gotten to meet the Backstreet Boys more times than I can count. Like my 16-year-old self would have died if she knew all of those things. And I've created a regular routine for myself that works for me. I don't have to worry about, is this going to be, even when it comes to food, I don't have to worry about like, okay, does my spouse like this that I'm cooking? Especially because me and my ex had very different tastes. So I never had food really that I liked. I just had food that like I could tolerate, that he liked. I try to make things that both of us somewhat liked. Now I kind of eat the same thing every day. I have the same breakfast, same lunch, same dinner almost every day because it works for me. It eliminates the need to think about what I'm going to buy when I'm food shopping. I like what I like, and that's it. And I think being with another person, having somebody else in my life full time would really get in the way of the way that I'm living now. So, I'm not necessarily completely against the idea of ever finding somebody again, but I think we'd have to have our own places and our own space and live. I think that I could be in some kind of relationship, but I don't think that I would live with somebody again. And I definitely wouldn't get married. And I honestly don't know if I'd even live with them. Maybe when I get a little bit older, I'll think differently. But right now, I've spent so much of my life under somebody else's control and with somebody else dictating who I should be and, what I should enjoy, what I should do, that it's freeing to do it for myself. And I used to be terrified of being alone. Like when I got
Wow.
married the first time, I was so scared of being alone. And even in my second marriage, my ex, he played on that fear of abandonment. I mean, he would threaten to leave me all the time.
Wow. Wow.
And he made me so miserable that I had no choice but to face my fears. And now that I have faced my fears and I'm alone, I love it. I'm like, shoot, I should have done this years ago.
Wow. Wow. Um, One last question. There's a bunch more. You can come back
I would
and,
love it.
and when your book comes out and stuff, and we'll talk.
Yeah.
But one last question. If and when you build your dream coaching business
Hmm.
in the future, what would you want it to stand for? And I think I know the answer to this part. Who do you most want to help? I think I know that already. Listening.
Hmm.
So talk about that.
My coaching practice that I'm building right now is designed around a complete mindset transformation. So it's geared towards women, especially those of us that have spent, for whatever reason, whether it be because of abuse or just, different types of upbringings, that you feel like you're not good enough and struggle so much with just such a negative self-view and a negative mindset. My goal is to help women go from feeling stuck and get into that growth-based mindset to where they can learn to believe in themselves, have self-confidence, really get an idea of what your core values are. Because when you don't know your core values, then you don't know how to incorporate them in your life. when you really get to dig in and understand what your values are, you can build a life around those things. That's how you build happiness, is you take the things that you value and you make sure that they're a core part of your life.
That's just great. This has been sitting here listening to you, taking some notes and digesting your journey. It's been a really fascinating listen for me.
Thank
Uh,
you.
well, it really has been, and actually it's I expressed this a little bit. You kind of, it's almost like you catch me off guard because you seem so happy and such a, such a exuberant face and yet what's behind that is powerful stuff, and you expressed it so amazing, and you have such a grasp and such a handle. I think you'd be one hell of a life coach
Thank you.
when that comes down. And you know you'll have this, and you can use some of this stuff because I mean I've been around the block a little bit. I've been down some of the similar roads. I've with the Women's Health Institute. I've listened to lots of stories and lots of clinicians talking about abuse and domestic violence. And like I mentioned to you earlier, my dear friend Keith Armenitis has done one of the most powerful films, short film, 7, 8 minutes. It's won he won awards in the Garden State Film Festival. Rockaway guy.
Mhm.
He did one of the most powerful films about abuse without a word being said. It's called
Mm.
it's called Be Home Soon, and I'm plugging him. So
I'll have to
bottom
check it
line,
out. Yeah.
Sammy, this has been a very special time.
Thank you.
So I'm inviting you to come back.
I would love it.
Yep, come back in any shape, way, or form. And I'm gonna actually stop recording now. Don't leave. We'll do a 2 minute wrap. But thank you so much. Thank you for finding
Yeah.
and doing the connection here. It was great. It's been great. Thank you.
It has been. I agree.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, don't leave.